Hi folks, Ryan Honeyman here from Lift Economy. Many folks have come to us over the last 10 years and asked, how do I get more involved in creating an economy that works for the benefit of all life? They also ask, what skills and experiences do I need to help make this transition? So 3 years ago, we created something called the Next Economy MBA to help address this and similar questions. Lift Economy's Next Economy MBA is an online course that's designed for entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, students, recent graduates, employees, and folks who want to learn more about transformational Next Economy strategies and businesses. Join the growing alumni network of nearly 250 alumni who've gone through this program and learned essential skills and hopefully built lifelong relationships for catalyzing businesses in the emergent and regenerative economy. So we encourage you to check out our course. You can go to lifteconomy.com/MBA. The next course, Cohort 7, starts on September 21st, 2021. So once again, go to www.lifteconomy.com/MBA. And now, on with the show. Welcome to Next Economy Now. The goal of this podcast series is to highlight the leaders who are taking a regenerative, bioregional, equitable, democratic, racially just, and whole systems approach to creating the new economy.
I'm so excited to welcome Mark Tilsen and Karlene Hunter to the show.
Thank you, Erin. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor to speak with you both. We are so in awe of Tanka Bar and the incredible mission and vision and beneficial impact that we see from this company. And I'm wondering, Karlene, if you could kick us off and start a little bit with sharing the story of Tanka Bar and how it got started.
We're located on the Pine Ridge Reservation, which is in the southwestern corner of South Dakota. And our reservation is one of the largest land-based reservations. With an economy, we're sitting in the third poorest county in the United States. We have an unemployment rate that runs around 70%. Our annual average per capita income is $5,600 a year. We pretty much have been left out of all economic development. So my business partner, Mark, and I have worked on trying to help create a viable economy on the reservation for the past 30 years. You know, we need to start private sector companies so we can start turning the dollar over more than once here. And we came up with, why don't we take the best of the best from Oglala Lakota people and bring it to the world? And so we decided that we would take one of our authentic traditional recipes called wasna, which is buffalo and berries, and create a bar. And in 2007, it culminated and we launched the Tanka Bar in 2007. It was the first meat and berry product to ever hit the shelf in a bar format. And they really didn't know what to do with us. But our mission, we have a triple bottom line, and, you know, we're trying to drive revenue and impact back onto the reservation and, you know, help spur the economic development here. And so we've created career path jobs. We've bought buffalo from our buffalo producers. So, you know, it's really a mission of trying to create an economy here.
Beautiful. So I think that's really important for our listeners to understand that in 2007, no one else was doing this. So how did you build essentially this market for this product?
Well, in the summer, we spent about a year working on the development of the product and working with the community, elders in the community, youth in the community, professionals in the community, producers in the community, to talk about what people thought of us creating a product out of a sacred food and out of a sacred animal. And we got a lot of support and a lot of clear direction from that. So it was in the summer of 2007. We had no money. We had developed this bar and we had this idea. And so we wanted to do what's proper in the Native American community. So we decided we would do something called a giveaway, where we would honor all the buffalo producers who had brought the buffalo back from extinction and created the opportunity for us to start our company. And we would make 10,000 bars and go to the largest event around here, which is the Black Hills Powwow. and we would ask the community for their support and give away the bars and get community input. And from there, try to develop a strategy to raise money to launch it. We got about 30 volunteers together, and we made about 10,000 bars, and we made these tattoos. And we passed out the tattoos. And this is a big community event, 3 days, about 10,000 people a day. And people really loved what we did. They loved us honoring the buffalo and the buffalo producers who come before us, and following the tradition of the giveaway and giving away the product as we introduced it. And they loved the tattoos, and it got really exciting. And local NPR picked it up, Associated Press picked it up. And this was, we thought this was our quiet launch in the Native community. And what happened is when the story got picked up, 10 days later, we were on the cover of the New York Times Taste section. And then the AP story literally went around the world. And, we were still making this thing in a little smoker. We didn't have any money. We had a little server that we had scrapped together from a different project to try to sell the product. And the thing was crashing every 45 minutes because we'd gotten so much press for it. So we, people were loving the product. So Karlene and I took out a large loan that we personally guaranteed and took all the money we had and found a co-packer and redesigned the packaging. And we took the product to Expo West in March of 2008. And at that point, the product, we were growing it, probably 30% a month. It was just hand over hand growing as fast as you could. People were loving the bar. And then, August of 2008 came, the economy locked up. Things got really slow for us. We had a hard time surviving that, but we made it through it. Mm-hmm. And then we started going to national distribution in 2009, towards the end of 2009, going into 2010. And the product grew really, really well. The buyers had a really hard time with, it's too moist to be jerky. You put it by the jerky set. Does it go by it's a protein bar, but it's meat? So does it go in the protein bar? Does it go in the snack section? And we kept saying, well, we pretty much like it by the cash register.
Well, I think it's very fantastic. I actually use it on backpacking trips and as a snack in the car. Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful origin story of a product that went essentially to a national launch through the act of generosity as its foundation. And I think that's a really important message for our listeners to hear. I'm curious about the sort of generative nature. Maybe we could move now to talking about, Karlene, you mentioned the buffalo on the land and the farmers you're working with. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the ecological impact of this company.
Well, buffalo has been a source of our tribe's existence forever. And, buffalo is very, very good for the land. It isn't as harsh on the land as cattle. It helps to restore the prairie grass, the natural plants. It's environmental. They're environmentally friendly. So we, took a product that our tribes used forever, for thousands of years, and worked with a lot of our buffalo producers to get a product that was environmentally friendly, that tastes good, that's high in protein, low in calorie, and really use that as the tip of the spear for our company. Mm-hmm. And, we're working with many producers across the nation. We've got our TankaFund.org that raises money so that we can get Native Americans into buffalo producing and restoring our land back to the natural grasses.
Right, and it's affected 1 million acres at this point. Is that correct?
That's our goal.
That's our goal.
Our goal is currently about 25% of our buffalo come from Native American producers or our own herd. It's important that people understand the value of grass in America's grasslands. The Great America's Prairie from central Canada to central Mexico was actually built by the buffalo, which are keystone species to the Great Plains. And the Great Plains are, one of the largest carbon sinks in the world outside of the rainforest and the ocean. And there's only about 3% of America's virgin prairie that is left unplowed. And about half of that is on Native American reservations. So when we restore buffalo, we're doing more than just bringing this great animal back from extinction. We're actually restoring the prairie, restoring the culture, and restoring the economy all at the same time. When you look at buffalo and you look at the destruction of the buffalo, which was a government policy in order to subjugate Indians between 1840 and 1890, we slaughtered over 40 million buffalo in the United States. And the buffalo, we had a government program to destroy them, but we never had a government program to restore them. So the buffalo have been brought back from extinction. I would say they paid for their recovery with their own blood, because it's hard for people to understand, but when you actually eat buffalo, you help them fulfill their purpose, which is they're sacred because they are givers of life. And so it's one of the first species as far as I know, the first species in history to be restored through entrepreneurship led by the tribes and private ranchers. It brought the buffalo back to where there's almost 500,000 in the lower 48 states today.
That's really, I think, incredibly powerful for our listeners to imagine an economy that actually doesn't just deplete, but actually restores. Can you talk a little bit more about the implications for the people that are working in your organization and also the reservation?
Well, the underlying tone behind, the underlying goal, of course, why did we go to, Karlene grew up here in Kyle in the middle of the Pine Ridge Reservation. And why did we launch a natural foods brand in the middle of a USDA food desert? Well, we launched it here because we're trying to create change. We're trying to create opportunities for the youth, restore the prairie, restore the buffalo, and help build a sustainable food system. When we got into studying why are Native American producers at the bottom of the value chain, we quickly learned that this 3 million acre reservation that we're sitting on, like the size of Delaware, 82% of the agriculture output of Indian country goes to non-native producers through a complicated federal land lease policy system. So you end up with a system, when you look at the poorest counties in the United States, which are mainly Indian reservations, you quickly realize that it's very similar to places like Guatemala or El Salvador, where the landowners are actually the poorest people. So our underlying goal here is to use the buffalo, which were destroyed to subjugate Indians, and use the buffalo to help empower Indians to be able to take back their own land and take control of their own economy and their own food system and build healthy, strong communities. So, in order to do that, one of the reasons we decided to become a B Corporation was a way of tracking our own history, our own progress, and our own commitment to each other and to the community. And now some of the employees have now become owners and are very much engaged in the planning of the future of the company and where it will be going. We're starting to partner with more and more Native American producers, and we're building a second company called Tanka Resilient Agriculture to try to recognize the resilience of the buffalo and the resilience of Indian people and drive the impact of that brand back onto the producers in order to help more families grow their own food and recover more prairie and more buffalo. So it's a long, comprehensive strategy. While we have a little bar, it's a little bar with a big, huge mission. There are 554 federally recognized tribes, and the lands of those tribes have tribal sovereignty, which is a form of sovereignty recognized by the federal government. That land is held in trust by the federal government. So Indian people are a trustee of the federal government. So up until the creation of the Obama administration, how that land is managed and how it's leased out is managed by the Department of Interior, which is one of the largest departments of our government outside of the Pentagon. And there's one department inside the Department of Interior that's charged with the daily lives of human beings, which is the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So the Bureau of Indian Affairs is managed within the Department of Interior, which is interesting to think about our government's relationship to Indian people. We don't work with them through the State Department. We work with them through the same department that manages the rest of our natural resources. And we tend to look at Indian people as a natural resource that we can exploit, their water, or timber, or coal, or oil, or natural resources. And to tell you the truth, their foods have been exploited throughout all of history and not for their own benefit. So what we're seeing is the leftovers of that same paternalistic system that has created these historical pockets of poverty that we're trying to reverse. The people on Pine Ridge Reservation are incredibly creative and resilient and have managed to survive against the best efforts of the federal government to force them into assimilation. And they're obviously not the poorest people in the country because they're the dumbest. They're actually the poorest people in the country because they've been confined and punished for their resistance. And so when we talk about Indian people's stewardship of natural resources, whether it's gas, water, oil, or coal, you got to realize that they're paying an economic price. There's an economic price to be paid for the fact that most of the virgin prairie that's left in the United States is on Indian land. There's an economic price to be paid for most of the 1/3 of the unexploited natural resources in North America are on First Nations people's lands. And there's a major effort to cut back federal aid to Indian people and try to force more resources to be sold. Companies like us are critical to that resistance because we provide the economic alternative to that destruction. We're trying to help people introduce best practices, whether they want to convert to buffalo, if they want to stay in the cattle business, let's go grass-fed, let's develop the best practices we can to mimic the buffalo that help restore the prairie. And we're trying to prepare future generations for how we grow food in an unstable environment. Right now we have 18 counties in our state that are national disaster areas because of the drought. Luckily, our counties right here, we're doing good for water, but it's a very unstable environment that all of us who raise food in need to recognize. And I think it's important as people look at the new economy, we're actually dealing with a population of folks who've been left out of the old economy. You can make an argument that if you have a 70% unemployment rate, that the last time the economy was functioning, it was partially Buffalo-based. And we're not advocating to go back to a Buffalo-based economy, but we do see an opportunity here to go back to a completely regenerative, sustainable economy.
So, Aaron, for the first time, Native people were participating in an economy. The internet has brought down a lot of those barriers, and we're participating in an economy because of our isolation we were left out of, since we were placed on the reservation.
And Mark, you mentioned Karlene grew up in Kyle. Karlene, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share observations of maybe how it's changed from where you grew up, maybe how this business may have influenced it or not. And
it's changed a lot. When I was young, most of the people that lived on the reservation survived off the commodity programs and programs that were within the Bureau of Indian Affairs that were allocated. Growing up, my grandmother, all of our relatives, if you wanted to do something with your land, you had to ask for permission. If you wanted to build something, you asked for permission. Everything was, was dictated by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So my generation, during the 70s and 80s, there was a whole movement to help return our rights. The 60s had just happened, and, with all the movement to obtain, your independence back, your power back. Now, for the first time, we can create businesses here. We can have private businesses. We still, our lands are still regulated, but we can put buffalo on them now, things like that. So, my children's generation, they grew up and they didn't have the stigmatism of you're under someone's thumb. You have to ask for permission for everything. Now I see my grandchildren, it's wide open for them. We're getting secondary education. People are becoming lawyers and business owners and doctors, where when I was growing up, it was never heard of to have a Native American teacher or a Native American attorney or doctor or business owner. I mean, just up until 20 years ago, there were only 2 Native American-owned businesses on this reservation. So, it's really important that, we have a Chamber of Commerce here that we helped found a little over 15 years ago. And, we want to mentor new businesses coming on, that people can get into business, that, we don't have to be left out of this economy.
And Karlene, what is your vision maybe for Tanka Sustainable Agriculture or Tanka Bar? What is your vision for the impact these businesses can have on the land and on the people?
Well, when we were talking about starting the business, we were looking at Ben & Jerry's, we were looking at Organic Valley, Patagonia. These are companies that created companies to have an impact on their region and really, focus on raising the standards for everybody. And we have a reservation here that's as big as the state of Delaware, and we have over 55,000 enrolled members here. And, so we're dealing with a big area, and we thought, why can't we do that? And we launched the company, we took off, we had year after year of growth. And then in 2015, we had, 2015 and 2016, we had copycats that mimicked us that were bought by, very large food conglomerates. And, now we're struggling again. It looked like we were going to accomplish our goals, and now, we're struggling again to retain our position in a category that we created. So, there's the ups and there's the downs, but we have to focus on being able to have an impact on our community and on our people. So that, with that, we've done some very creative investment opportunities and things like that. We have a campaign going now that we're very, very appreciative of. It's on leafunder.com, and, we've had people that believe in our mission, believe in our goals and our triple bottom line, and we're very, very optimistic about it, that we can have the revenues now to combat the marketing issues, and really retain our space in the retail space. We're in all 50 states and over 3,000 or 7,000 retail outlets. We're in the majority of the big food chains, Things are good, but, the battle is never done.
So the area between South Dakota and Minnesota is a place known as Buffalo Ridge. It's one of the highest points between the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. And we've been working with a family on the Siston Reservation, neighboring reservation, they're trying to convert their land back to buffalo. And last summer, we were able to put 150 buffalo on top of Buffalo Ridge for the first time in 100 years. That was after all the fencing and the water was all done, and we moved the buffalo up there, and they literally danced on the grass like they knew they were supposed to be there. And it was just really, really exciting to be able to do all this planning for all these years and then to actually do it. So we're kind of working with a variety of different producers. Some are younger people who are inheriting cattle operations from their family and they want to go to a more sustainable model. We work with several Tioshpais, which are the extended family system here on the reservation that still exists today. It's kind of the cornerstone of traditional governance, and the justice system works off of the Tioshpai system, the traditional one. So we work with some of them. We've been able to give out some grants for fencing, grass restoration, some water restoration, and trying to do more and more of that stuff where we're trying to help them develop access to capital. The way capital structure is structured by USDA, and I just recently testified in front of USDA about this exact issue, is because they're requiring people to refinance their loans every 12 to 14 months. That, in effect, facilitates them having to stay as cow-calf operators or on the bottom of the value chain. And that financial system or tool feeds the fast food industry because it forces the producer to sell those calves before developing the full value of a grass-fed animal, which we know is both healthier to the consumer, healthier to the grass, and better for the producer. But that also requires them to have the capital in place to be able to own that animal for 20 plus months. So we've been trying to attack that. And, there's some very exciting things to us about working with the Lift economy and the B Corp folks and the We Funder folks who are part of what you guys call the new economy, because it's our hope that the leadership of the new economy, as demonstrated by the support we're getting, isn't going to leave out the same people, whether they're inner city folks or reservation-based folks who have been left out of the dominant economy. The dominant economy looks at the reservation as a place to be exploited, not a place to be invested. If you were to understand that in rural America, the only counties that are actually growing in population are those of Chicano communities and Native American communities. And if we started investing in those communities and commensurate to their growth rate, we wouldn't have these permanent pockets of poverty.
Right.
So we're working with this constituency and new types of investors that you guys are working with. We're hoping that it opens up a whole new generation of investors for the younger generation of entrepreneurs here, because this is a hotbed of creativity. People don't live on less than $6,000 a year unless they're extremely creative. And, it's been through entrepreneurship that, you'll talk to Indians who will tell you, oh, we make all this beadwork and we do all this star quilt, but we're not entrepreneurs. We don't even know what that is. They're all entrepreneurs. That's how they survive. So we're, this type of relationship where, like, the folks who are interested in this new economy and like what you guys are doing, we're hoping that it is going to create new opportunities for folks, not just with our company, but all across Indian country who've been basically left out of the dominant economy.
Right. And we'd even call it, to put a finer point on it, we'd even kind of favor the term next economy rather than new economy, because really we're taking our cues from a lot of very, very old traditions, right? And trying to respect the people that have gone before. Ultimately, the word economy is about home care. And so there's a lot of people who have had very, very old economies that have certainly been inspirations to what we're trying to create, and as you mentioned. Karlene, what gets you inspired every day to keep doing this incredibly hard work?
What inspires me is the accomplishments we've been able to have. When I look around at the people running the company here, the staff, most of them are first-time job holders. Most of them never had a bank account before they came to work here. And we were able to bring them in, help them, with education and hook them up with experienced mentors and really get them trained in career path jobs that they could leave here and go anywhere and be swooped up, in a New York minute.
Mm.
They choose to live here because our families are here. There's a reason that we stay here. Our culture is here. They're raising their families here. And, last year they were able to become owners in the business and really, create real assets, wealth assets, instead of just jobs. And to see the pride in their face, when they introduce themselves as, an owner of Native American natural foods, and to see their growth and to see what it's like to see opportunities on Native people's faces is what inspires me. Our consumers don't get to experience, they get to experience the product and the great flavor of the product and, the protein benefits and everything, but they don't get to see how driving revenues back into the community, the inspiration of hope on people's face that we can stay here, we can have a good job, we can raise our children here. That's what inspires me.
You just painted, I think, what's really important distinction between, what happens when someone chooses to spend their money on Tanka Bar as opposed to, any number of the other meat bar alternatives that are out on the market that aren't owned by Native American families and communities.
Right. And people keep saying you need to get your story out there. And that's great. And that's we realize that. But with limited funds, we're a relatively small company in a big, huge pool of big, large conglomerates. And, so you really have to set priorities of what you spend your money on. But, the reason we started this company and our mission is truly what drives us. And we'd love to get that story out there because it truly is what we've never taken a dime out of the company. We've always, driven revenues back in. We've supported, youth programs and elder programs on Native American reservations, through donations and things like that. But we've never, did a cash distribution or anything. Our mission is what drives us. It truly is.
Is there one of your employees or friends of Tanka Bar in particular who would be open to letting you share their story on this podcast? A story in particular that you love?
Well, there's a lot of stories. You're kind of catching me off guard. There's our investors.
My favorite one that Karlene, we're going to talk Karlene into telling this one, but soon after we launched the company, she was in a store in Rapid City, and these two elders from the reservation approached her to tell the story.
So we had worked all weekend on our launch, and, we were working 14, 16-hour days, during this launch and getting the product out there. And so it was over. I was getting ready to drive 90 miles home back to the reservation, and I stopped to get gas. And I was in this convenience store, and this elderly couple came up to me, and they said, "Are you the Tanka Bar lady?" And I had never been called that before. And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess." And they said, "We want to shake your hand, and we want to thank you." And I said, "For what?" And they said, "This is the first time in our lives that, we were proud that people seen and loved our products from the reservation. And it made us proud that you took, Wasna and made it into a national thing that other people love too." And I just cried all the way home. It was the first time in their entire lives that they have been treated with respect and that, people loved a product from the reservation.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very heartfelt. I cried all the way home, and it kind of affirmed that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Right. It's a beautiful story. Yeah.
The reservation can be described as a kind of place of contradictions because it's really, really beautiful. The people here are really strong, really resilient, and really beautiful. The culture is beautiful. The Lakota language is still here. The belief system is intact. And the poverty is real and historic, and the oppression is real and historic. So you have this really beautiful culture that we're sharing through our product, and you have this really oppressive economic system that we're fighting through our product. I like to tell people we don't have a brand story because we don't have a story that the marketing department made up so that we could pretend to be something we're not, like so many of our competitors. We have, look at all these competitors that have the fake Indian imagery on them or Indian names on them. They have nothing to do with the Indian community. They're just trying to pretend that they're something they're not. General Mills doesn't even put they don't even put their own name on their ick bar that they sell. And that's how proud they are of their own product. And so it's important that people understand this isn't the brand story. This is just a brand truth. And we didn't have a marketing department that created this. This is just who we are and what we're doing.
Well, Lift Economy and I personally am extraordinarily humbled and honored to have even a little role in helping you both tell this story. I'm wondering if you could share any ideas you might have of what can listeners do with this information to help support Tanka Bar. How can they find the bars? How can they support you? How can they spread the word to other people to buy more Tanka Bars?
Well, the biggest platform is probably Amazon. Go to Amazon, do a review, tell people what you think, buy some products. You can buy products on tankabar.com. When you add this product to your life, you're adding a product that's only 70 calories, 7 grams of natural protein. It's 100% natural. There's no nitrates or nitrites or potassium sorbate. So you're adding some real power. Buffalo is a very, very powerful protein. It has less cholesterol than sockeye salmon or skinless chicken. And so make it part of your life, which is going to improve your life, and share the story of how that does with your circle of friends. We are in a capital raise program right now, trying to raise more money to update the brand so people can go to WeFunder and learn about the opportunities to actually become an investor there on WeFunder.
We'll link to that in the show notes. WeFunder.com/tanka.bar.
And by all means, if you have the means to become an investor, we would truly, truly appreciate that to help us retain, our shelf space and help us, with all the information is on WeFunder. And we would truly appreciate that and appreciate sharing the story. Social media, through word of mouth, and by all means, please look for us in the stores. And tankabar.com, if you look for your Tanka Bars in your stores and buy the authentic, true, traditional recipe bar that is Native American, we would truly, truly appreciate that.
Well, thank you both so much for your time today, for taking the time out of all the work and meetings and correspondence and everything that you do each day to keep this company thriving and growing.
Well, we thank you. We thank Lift Economy. We thank WeFunder. People have truly tried to help us in trying to keep this company alive and reaching its goals and missions. We truly do appreciate you, and we appreciate, you inviting us to the podcast so we could share our story, and we invite people to do some research, find out who's behind the products that they're buying, and really look for authentic products that are having an impact on community. Thank you, Erin. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, it's such a joy to be in relationship with you both, and really anything that we can continue to do to support this work, we're right there with you. Are there any last thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners before we close?
There's a lot to learn on tankabar.com. There's links to videos and movies. I think there's a link to the documentary on us on WeFunder as well. So there's a lot more places you can learn, and we just want to thank you and the whole Lift community for your support.
Thanks again. We'll get this out there so more of our listeners know about this incredible mission to restore buffalo to the American prairie and to heal communities and foster economic development on Pine Ridge and throughout Indian country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next Economy Now is a production of Lift Economy. To listen to all of our episodes, go to lifteconomy.com/podcast. That's LIFT economy.com/podcast. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletter at lifteconomy.com/newsletter. Please also rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.